Grassroots on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Dan Mandis here along with Johnny B, Ken Weaver as well. By the way, you can listen online anytime, pretty much anywhere you want. You can find us on the stream at 997WTN.com. Also, you can watch the radio show on YouTube and Facebook as well. All the details, again, at 997WTN.com. Pleased to speak with Matthew Hurtt. He is our Grassroots political analyst, joining us here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And Matthew, I'm going to play this audio for you. This is Joe Biden, and this was during his turkey pardon yesterday.
You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now.
All right. So, Matthew, clearly he's trying to throw in some pop culture references to make himself seem, dark Brandon, younger, more relevant and so forth. But he managed to mix up Britney Spears and Taylor Swift, and kind of a bad taste in joke because, of course, we know what happened in Brazil. Taylor Swift had a person die from, we don't really know how they died, but there was 140-degree temperatures with the heat index. And so my question to you is this. Do you think that there was some sort of a line, we were debating this earlier, do you think there was some sort of a line in the teleprompter, and did he misread the teleprompter, or is Joe Biden just winging it?
Dan, it's quite an embarrassment, and it is clear that Joe Biden is not capable of serving perhaps to the end of this term, but certainly into the next term. Wall Street Journal had an opinion a few days ago. Joe Biden turns 81 years old. Running for re-election in his condition is an act of profound selfishness. The alarm bells are going off in some areas of the Democratic Party. I'm not sure it's made it to the Biden White House. But the Democratic Party and this president are in danger of losing big in 2024 if they don't find someone who can right the ship. It's clear that Joe Biden is not fit for office. I don't know if it's a teleprompter problem or the folksy and relatable aspect of Joe that he's trying to be, or a mix of both. But this just is not how a president should look and act from the White House.
It's interesting. I don't know if you saw that story in the New York Post this morning, but apparently there's a report that within the Biden administration, they're now fully engaged in Operation Biden Bubble Wrap, where they're trying to do everything they can to protect the gaffe-prone Joe Biden, whether it is, things that he says or falling down, getting lost as he's trying to get off stage. Now, people that listen to this show know that for a long time, I called Biden Bubble Wrap Biden because the media and the Democrat Party were doing just that, wrapping him up in bubble wrap to protect him. And now hear this story from the New York Post, where this apparently is an official initiative within the Biden campaign, Operation Bubble Wrap. Not real surprising.
This is a hallmark of Joe Biden's term as president. Since the very beginning, the staff has handled him. At one press conference, he said, I'm taking the questions that I'm told to take. And so this is certainly a hallmark of the Biden White House. It remains to be seen, and it probably won't be seen by any of us, if there are official documents providing this guidance. There have to be people on staff communicating, probably over the phone, certainly in meetings, but maybe even in written communications on how to handle these kinds of activities, these kinds of gaffes and behavioral situations that we see. And it is unlikely that we'll ever see it, but we can know that folks on the inside, on the official side and on the campaign side, are having a time trying to babysit, as you say, bubble wrap Joe.
Matthew Hurtt joins us, Grassroots political analyst. Matthew, I got to ask you this. Of course, we know there's been a lot of polling out there that shows that not only Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, all would beat Joe Biden if the election were held today. Now, Nikki Haley, of course, as a lot of folks will point out, she would beat Joe Biden, according to the polling, by a wider margin, a higher margin than Donald Trump would. But, I mean, everyone knows clearly that the Republican Party wants Donald Trump as the nominee. What do you make of all this?
It is still way too early to tell. We've got another 12 months before the general election. it's very clear that the numbers aren't trending in the right direction for Democrats. We saw the New York Times Siena poll where minority groups are moving away from the Democrats. There are a number of articles out of late that sort of echo that. I think it is a true opportunity for Republicans, no matter who the candidate at the top of the ticket is, to communicate with young voters, with African Americans, with Hispanics, with Asian Americans on a message that is common sense conservative. We don't actually have to change our message to meet new groups of voters. We just have to send the right messengers. And so I'm comfortable with the current field, with any of those candidates defeating Joe Biden, and any of those candidates helping to sweep in Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. We just have to have candidates who are able to take that message to those voters. And, 12 months out, it looks pretty good. But, of course, 12 months out from the last several presidential elections, it's always been in flux. And I think that, as the field solidifies, we'll see more going into June, July, August of next year.
So, Matthew, let me ask you, just staying on the Republican primary field for a sec. We know that Vivek Ramaswamy, he is conservative. I'm not sure if I would call him Republican at this point. He seems like he is on a mission to do what he can to call out, I don't know, some might say destroy the Republican Party. I don't know about that. But what happens to Vivek Ramaswamy? I mean, it's clear he's not going to be the one that Republicans choose to be our nominee. Is there a place for him within, I mean, clearly not in the Haley administration, but in a possible Biden, I should say a possible Trump administration?
Well, Dan, I think, and I'm not sure if I said this last time, but I believe that Vivek Ramaswamy is a candidate that is propped up by the Donald Trump campaign operation, and I know the folks who are on aspects of this campaign. I suspect that he would land in a Trump administration. If not, he certainly could go back to the private sector and create this persona around him. A lot of people run for office to land and achieve some form of success on television or in the entertainment industry, and he could pursue that. I don't see him long term in the Republican Party apparatus. But yeah, I think he may wind up in the Trump administration if Trump is the nominee, or on CNN or MSNBC.
One of our super texters said that maybe he ought to work, within the Trump administration, maybe as press secretary, which I think would be entertaining as all get out, even more entertaining than Cringe Jean-Pierre. 646 on WTN. All right, let's talk about the January 6th tapes real quick. House Speaker Mike Johnson, he has now begun releasing these. It's interesting and fascinating at the same time because you have the Democrats and some Republicans who are hyperventilating over all of this because, they're saying it's a threat toward democracy and all this kind of stuff. Well, they themselves released a whole bunch of footage during their own committee. But now all of a sudden, this is somehow, again, going to be a threat to our democracy and dangerous. So two-part question. Number one, how much have you been delving into these tapes that have begun to be released over the weekend? That's number one. And number two, will these really have any impact on what's coming up in 2024?
The American people deserve to know what happened on January 6th. And I think Senator Mike Lee summarized it pretty well. Maybe the January 6th Commission never even questioned their own narrative. And as the Speaker releases these tapes, we're seeing some pretty alarming things. The one I saw most recently was a gentleman being arrested, led away in handcuffs, and then released and high-fived. To what extent did Capitol Police play a role in this? To what extent did figures like Ray Epps and others play a role in this? I was in Washington on January 6th. I was not near the Capitol, but I saw protesters and folks coming back at the end of the day, and many of them looked, like Americans from any part of the country that you would imagine. Did not look like aggressive or violent individuals, and so it remains to be seen. I think I applaud the Speaker for doing this. It's something the previous Speaker did not do. And I think that Americans will learn more about what is happening. I am ashamed, quite frankly, of the January 6th Commission. It looks like, and many people knew from the beginning, but it looks like this was a political committee established to punish a segment of the population, what Hillary Clinton called the deplorables, And now it is, the American people aren't going to stand for it. So I applaud the Speaker for doing this, and for conservatives in Congress for really speaking out. They apparently have deliberately hid this from us.
Well, remember, Matthew, and this is where I'm going to throw in my opinion, because we've seen narratives go unchallenged except by a small few. Trump colluded with Russia, the whole Jussie Smollett thing. COVID was absolutely not released one way or another from that lab in China. The laptop was Russian disinformation, and the vaccines are perfectly safe. And now we know that people are seeing side effects. And so all of these things were called conspiracy theories. And so, at least to me, the very latest is, this whole thing regarding January 6th. We all found out that the things that I just mentioned, people like me, and I don't know where you stand on all these things, but, we were called any number of names. And it turned out that their narrative, pushed by the media and pushed by the Democrats and many Republicans, were absolutely false. And now here we are with these January 6th tapes. And I'm just wondering, as people delve into these thousands of hours of tapes, will we find out that there is far more to the story, including the FBI embedding some of their agents into what happened on January 6th? And for me, and I'll let you have the last word, it's all about transparency.
What concerns me most, Dan, is that we are in a post-truth America. Distrust in institutions is at an all-time high. The government, the media, our civic institutions. Stories like this do not contribute to the health and vibrancy of an American experiment, and it concerns me deeply. They labeled the right, they labeled Trump supporters as purveyors of disinformation, and we have seen time and time again the government and the media and the institutions fail us, and I am not quite sure how to come back from that just yet.
Matthew Hurtt, Grassroots political analyst. Matthew, remind folks where they can find you on Twitter.
Twitter, I'm at Matthew Hurtt, and it's a total of 4 T's, MATTHEWHURTT.
All right, thank you, Matthew. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you again soon.